What if I told you that the $50 bottle of so-called miracle hair oil sitting on your bathroom counter right now might actually be acting as a sticky magnet?
Oh, yeah, just actively trapping smog, dirt, and, environmental pollutants right against your hair.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and today we are wading straight through the incredibly glossy, highly convincing marketing of the cosmetics aisle.
Which is a jungle, honestly.
It really is, but we're doing it to uncover the actual science and strategy behind hair oils. And our grounding source today is this intensely detailed 2026 guide from Ingredientsage.
Yeah, written by Lauren Fabian, titled Hair Oils Demystified, a modern guide to types, benefits, and how to use.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because if you have ever, walked into a store, stared at a wall of 50 different tiny glass bottles and just felt instantly paralyzed by choice, well, you are not alone.
No, you're really not. And what's fascinating here is that we tend to view hair oil as this, monolithic category. This is a generic liquid we slather on our heads, hoping for the best.
Right, like it's all just oil.
Exactly. But these oils are highly complex chemical tools. I mean, we're talking about intricate profiles of fatty acids, wax esters, vitamins, antioxidants.
So it's not just grease.
Far from it.
Okay.
Like any precision tool, you have to know exactly what it's built for and the mechanisms of how it interacts with human biology.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you simply aren't going to get the results promised on the box.
And that is our mission for you today. By the end of this deep dive, we're going to figure out how these oils are actually manufactured, which specific chemical profiles match your unique hair type, and
Crucially, how to avoid the daily routines that might be secretly ruining your hair.
yes. But before we figure out what to put on our hair, we really have to look at how that oil gets into the bottle in the first place.
Because the extraction process completely dictates the quality.
Yeah.
Right? It's the difference between getting a precision chemical tool or just like a bottle of cheap stripped-down grease.
Exactly.
So the extraction method is the absolute foundation. It dictates the nutrient content, the purity, and the biological activity of the product.
Which is why the source makes such a big deal about it.
Right. And the most sought-after method in the premium market is cold-pressed extraction. This uses purely mechanical force to squeeze the oil from the seed or nut without applying any external heat.
I was visualizing this process like making coffee.
Oh, how so?
Well, cold pressed is like a delicate cold brew. By avoiding high heat, you preserve the really subtle flavor notes. Or I guess in the case of hair care, you preserve the nutrients that would normally just get burned away.
That's a great analogy. Let's actually take that a step further. When you use high heat in processing, you permanently destroy delicate biological compounds. But in a true cold-pressed oil, you're preserving heat-sensitive phytosterols and tocopherols.
Tocopherols, wait, what are those again?
Basically forms of vitamin E. They function as incredibly potent antioxidants.
Okay, I mean, I hear the word antioxidant used in marketing all the time, but
Most people don't know what it actually means.
yeah, what is it actually doing on a microscopic level to a hair shaft?
It is neutralizing oxidative stress. See, every single day, UV radiation from the sun and atmospheric pollution just bombards your hair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this creates free radicals. These are unstable molecules that aggressively degrade the hair's keratin protein structure.
Which leads to what, exactly?
Brittleness, breakage, and really rapid color fading. So the antioxidants preserved in a cold-pressed oil essentially sacrifice themselves. They take the chemical hit from those free radicals to protect the physical protein structure of your hair.
Wow, they just jump on the grenade.
Exactly. Because cold pressing keeps these compounds intact, the oils have a massive degree of biological activity. But, and this is a big but, there is a serious vulnerability.
Which is?
Because they are so raw and unrefined, they're highly sensitive to oxidation from light and air. So if you see a brand selling a cold-pressed oil in a cheap, clear plastic bottle...
Oh no, so it's just sitting under the store lights getting ruined.
Yes, that oil is actively degrading under the fluorescent lights. They require low oxygen, opaque, or UV-protected packaging to actually survive.
Right, so the packaging itself is a dead giveaway of a brand's scientific literacy. Now, if cold pressing is the delicate cold brew, what is solvent-assisted extraction? Because that sounds intensely industrial.
It is. Solvent-assisted extraction is heavily utilized in mass-market products to maximize yield. Instead of just physically pressing the plant, manufacturers douse the raw material in harsh industrial chemical solvents.
Like what kind of solvents?
Typically hexane. The hexane dissolves the plant matter and pulls every last microscopic drop of lipid out. Then they apply high heat to evaporate the solvent away, leaving only the oil.
Okay, that sounds like making instant coffee with like harsh chemicals. Sure, you maximize your yield, but it doesn't sound like something I want rubbing directly into my scalp.
And you shouldn't. The primary concern is residue. If the final product isn't rigorously and perfectly purged, trace amounts of those chemical solvents can be left behind in the oil. Yeah. This is why solvent-assisted oils are almost entirely excluded from the premium clean label cosmetics market. When consumers pay a premium for a cold-pressed label, they aren't just buying a marketing buzzword.
They're paying for peace of mind.
Exactly. They are paying for the physical, chemical reality that no industrial solvents were used, ensuring absolute purity and zero risk of residue.
Now, there's also expeller pressed, right? Sitting right in the middle of those two extremes.
Yes, expeller pressed is mechanical, but the friction of the pressing machine generates some heat, which can alter some of the more volatile compounds.
But it still completely avoids the chemical solvents.
Correct.
Okay, so we have these pure raw oils. The temptation is to just grab the most popular one, like coconut oil, and use it every day. But reading through the source material, I realized I can't just slap any oil onto my head.
No, you definitely cannot. You really have to play matchmaker between the chemical profile of the oil and the physical structure of your hair. And we also have to consider formulations. You can buy a single oil, a blend of oils engineered by a chemist for a specific texture, or an infusion where targeted botanicals are steeped into a base oil to extract active compounds.
Without muddying the ingredient list.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's talk about coconut oil for a second. People treat it like an absolute cure-all for everything from cooking to skincare. But sometimes when I use it on my hair, it just makes my strands feel incredibly stiff, like heavy straw.
Yes.
Why is that happening if it's supposedly a miracle ingredient?
Well, coconut oil is incredibly rich in lauric acid. Lauric acid is a specific fatty acid with a straight-chain molecular structure.
Okay.
This linear structure allows it to penetrate deep into the hair shaft and create a highly effective, robust barrier that locks internal moisture inside.
That sounds good, though.
It is good. But if you have fine hair or low porosity hair where the microscopic cuticles are already tightly closed and lying flat, that dense barrier cannot penetrate.
Oh, I see.
It simply builds up on the outside. It coats the hair strand layer by layer, leaving it feeling stiff, heavy, and completely weighed down.
So what's the solution? Am I just locked out of using coconut oil forever?
Not necessarily. Cosmetic chemists have actually developed fractionated coconut oil.
Fractionated?
Yeah. Through a physical separation process, they remove the long-chain fatty acids that cause regular coconut oil to solidify at room temperature. What you are left with are only the medium-chain triglycerides.
Oh, wow.
The result is an oil that remains permanently liquid, feels dramatically lighter, and provides weightless conditioning without that suffocating buildup.
Okay. If argan oil gives a beautiful satin finish, and fractionated coconut oil seals in moisture, and jojoba oil is supposedly great for the scalp,
Yeah.
how do I know which one I actually need?
Well,
Am I supposed to buy 5 different bottles and play chemist in my bathroom?
you might actually need more than one, because a single strand of human hair is not uniform from root to tip. We have to think about the hair as a varied landscape. Let's look at jojoba. It is technically not an oil at all.
Wait, really?
Nope, it's a wax ester. Its molecular structure is nearly identical to human sebum, which is the natural oil produced by the sebaceous glands on our scalps.
Oh, interesting.
Because jojoba biomimics sebum so closely, the scalp's immune system doesn't register it as a foreign, heavy substance. It makes it incredibly soothing, non-comedogenic, and perfect for balancing the living tissue of the scalp.
Okay, but if jojoba perfectly mimics the oil our bodies literally evolved to produce, why wouldn't everyone just use that all the way down to the ends of their hair?
It's a fair question.
Like, why even bother buying a heavy, notoriously sticky oil like castor or avocado?
Because the ends of your hair are living in a completely different biological reality than your roots.
What do you mean?
If you have long hair, the ends might be several years old. They have been battered by years of UV radiation, wind, heat styling tools, physical friction against your clothing.
They've been through a lot.
Exactly. The protective outer layer has likely been chipped away. They are highly porous, dry, essentially dead structures. A light wax ester like jojoba is simply too thin to protect them.
Ah, so you need the heavy hitters to artificially rebuild that lost protective barrier on the old damaged sections.
Precisely. For the ends, you need a richer lipid profile, like argan or avocado, or consider castor oil.
Castor is so thick, though.
It is notoriously thick and viscous, yes, but it possesses a massive concentration of ricinoleic acid.
Which does what?
It acts as a powerful humectant. It physically grabs water molecules from the surrounding environment and holds them against the hair. It is phenomenal for deep moisture, even if it requires more effort to rinse out.
Okay, that makes sense.
And for color-treated hair, you would reach for rosehip oil, which delivers an intense dose of antioxidants to prevent artificial color molecules from oxidizing and fading.
So you really are treating the landscape accordingly.
Yes. Apply the biomimetic jojoba to the roots to balance the living scalp and deploy the robust argan to the tips to seal the dead structure of the ends.
Okay, so we are treating different zones of this landscape with entirely different chemical tools, but even if I have perfectly matched my oils to my porosity, I could still be ruining the whole process with my application routine.
Oh, absolutely. Application is everything.
Let's tackle the physical application then, because the biggest myth we need to bust right now is this idea that more oil equals better shine and more moisture.
It is such a pervasive misconception. The thought process is basically, if 3 drops create a nice sheen, a whole palmful will give me spectacular glass-like hair.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The reality is the exact opposite. Think of the outside of your hair, the cuticle, like the overlapping shingles on a roof.
Okay.
A tiny drop of the right oil acts like a microscopic glue that smooths those shingles down flat against the structure. And when those shingles lie perfectly flat and uniform, sunlight reflects evenly off the surface.
And our eyes perceive that smooth reflection as shine. That is the exact optical physics at play. Shine is an optical illusion created by a sealed, flat cuticle.
Right. But what happens to the roof if you apply too much?
It doesn't get shinier.
Exactly. If you dump an entire bucket of oil on the roof, you aren't smoothing the shingles down anymore, you're just flooding the house.
Yeah.
You create this thick, sticky trap. The excess oil just sits heavily on the outside of the hair shaft. And as you walk around outside, think of overwaxing a car. That thick layer of oil actively grabs onto ambient dust, smog, and environmental pollutants, trapping them against your head.
It literally becomes a magnet for particulate matter, which is so gross to think about.
It really is.
And there is a secondary myth tied directly to this. The idea that all oils fundamentally weigh your hair down. The weight of an oil on your hair isn't just a function of volume, it's fundamentally about molecular size.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, jojoba and grapeseed have very small molecular structures.
Yeah.
They can easily slip right between those microscopic cuticle scales.
Got it.
But castor and regular coconut oil have massive molecular structures that sit heavily on the surface. If your hair feels weighed down, you might not be using too much oil. You might just be using a molecule that is physically too large for your specific hair's diameter.
Oh, wow. So if I have the right molecule, how do I actually apply it safely? Because the source breaks down a few specific techniques. There is the pre-poo treatment, where you put oil on completely dry hair before you step into the shower to wash it.
Yes, the primary goal of a pre-shampoo treatment is to create a hydrophobic buffer. Shampoos use harsh surfactants, basically detergents designed to bind to oils and dirt to wash them away.
But they can do their job a little too well.
Exactly. They can strip the hair's natural intercellular lipids too aggressively. This causes rapid moisture loss and forces the hair shaft to rapidly swell and contract with water, which is a damaging process known as hygral fatigue.
So the oil acts like a shield.
Right. By applying an oil beforehand, you give the shampoo an alternative lipid to dissolve, protecting the hair's delicate internal moisture core from the detergents.
That is so smart. Then there are washout formats where you apply the oil and leave it on for like 5 to 20 minutes. And overnight treatments.
Right. And for the overnight ones, you obviously have to use something incredibly light, or you're just destroying your pillowcases.
Yeah, nobody wants that. But we really need to talk about safety here, because people assume natural means you can just pour it on without thinking. Essential oils, for example, require serious respect.
Yes, they do. Essential oils are highly concentrated, potent, volatile compounds. If applied neat, meaning undiluted, they can easily cause severe sensitization or allergic contact dermatitis.
You must perform a patch test.
Always. Dilute the essential oil in a neutral carrier oil, apply a small amount to the inner forearm or behind the ear, and monitor the area for 24 to 48 hours for any inflammatory or immune response.
But, you know, if overnight oils are so tricky and essential oils can cause immune reactions, how do we get deep, long-term hydration without ruining our faces?
This raises an important question about how our routines overlap.
Yeah, because this was a massive aha moment for me reading this guide. The realization that your hair routine might be secretly sabotaging your facial skincare routine while you sleep.
It happens all the time. Hair oils migrate. Over the course of the night, your body heat and the physical friction of tossing and turning cause the oil to travel down your forehead or transfer from your hair onto your pillowcase and then rub directly into your cheeks.
And if you're using skincare products on your face?
That's where the danger is. If you are using powerful, active facial skincare-like exfoliating acids, or especially retinoids, that migrating hair oil creates an occlusive seal over those actives.
Oh, man.
Retinoids work by rapidly increasing cellular turnover, which can be inherently irritating. If you trap a strong retinoid against your skin under an occlusive layer of migrated hair oil, you drastically increase its penetration.
Which means?
This frequently leads to severe chemical irritation, redness, and peeling. You have to consider your hair oil as an interacting, highly mobile variable within your entire dermatological regimen.
It is wild to think that trying to fix some dry split ends could end up burning your face with retinol.
Yeah, the chemical reaction happening on your pillow.
This level of meticulous care, understanding the exact molecular size, tracking the extraction methods, worrying about chemical cross-contamination on a cellular level, it just feels like a completely different world from the old days of just buying whatever bottle smelled like tropical coconuts.
It is a different world now.
And according to the market data spanning from 2023 to 2026, this level of scrutiny isn't just some niche hobby anymore. Consumers are actively rebelling against the old marketing tricks.
We are witnessing a fundamental shift in purchasing power and industry standards. Consumers are demanding radical transparency, and more importantly, they now possess the scientific literacy to actually enforce it.
Right. For decades, cosmetic brands could just bottle cheap, solvent-extracted grease, add a drop of synthetic fragrance, and legally slap a premium argan oil label on the front.
But not anymore.
Now, it's like a consumer detective story. Buyers are forcing laboratories to release the actual chemical blueprints of the oil before they even consider making a purchase.
You're referring to the rise of GCMS profiling.
Yes, exactly.
Gas chromatography mass spectrometry. It is an advanced analytical testing method. The gas chromatograph essentially vaporizes the oil and separates it into its individual molecular components, while the mass spectrometer identifies and precisely quantifies every single molecule.
So it's like an X-ray for the oil.
It creates a definitive, unarguable chemical fingerprint of the oil. This test proves unequivocally whether an oil is pure, whether it has been cheaply diluted with synthetic fillers, or if it contains dangerous pesticide residue.
Which is huge for the consumer.
Huge. When a brand actively publishes their independent GCMS reports, they are opening their entire supply chain up to the ultimate scientific scrutiny.
And that scrutiny extends heavily to vegan labeling, too. I mean, it is no longer just about avoiding animal ingredients in the final dottle. Consumers are demanding proof of the complete absence of animal-derived processing aids during the entire extraction and filtration process.
Exactly.
Add to that the absolute demand for 100% recyclable, lightweight, or refillable packaging. This consumer rebellion is really forcing an industry-wide evolution.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it brings us to the most significant scientific paradigm shift mentioned in the text, the scalp-first care revolution.
Yes, tell me about that.
Historically, the entire hair care industry focused purely on the aesthetic appearance of the dead hair strand. The science was entirely focused on how to coat this dead fiber to make it look shiny.
Right, painting the roof shingles.
But now, modern biological research has forced an acknowledgement that hair health originates exclusively at the follicular level. The scalp is living skin.
It's an extension of your face, really.
Yes. Formulators are now building products that utilize complex anti-inflammatory compounds and barrier-supporting lipids to treat the scalp environment itself. The goal is to prevent oxidative stress before the hair even physically emerges from the follicle.
There is a fantastic quote in the guide from Dr. Maya Chen, a cosmetic chemist and formulator, who sums this up perfectly.
What does she say?
She says, "The most successful hair oil products balance scalp-first care with strand conditioning while communicating sustainability and safety clearly to consumers." She emphasizes that transparent sourcing and rigorous quality control are no longer optional marketing tactics. They are a, quote, baseline expectation.
That's perfectly stated. The biological science of the hair follicle and the environmental science of the global supply chain are no longer separate conversations. They are intimately, permanently linked.
Yeah. So let's take a quick look at the journey we've just been on. We went from understanding why a mechanical cold press preserves the delicate, heat-sensitive antioxidants that fight off daily UV damage to why harsh chemical solvents are a massive red flag for clean label shoppers.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really mapped out the diverse landscape of the head. We learned to use biomimetic jojoba to balance and soothe the living scalp while deploying heavy, humectant-rich hitters like castor and argan to artificially seal up the damaged, highly porous ends.
And we busted the shiny hair myth.
Yes. Realizing that dumping too much oil on the cuticle just creates a sticky trap for environmental smog. And finally, we tracked how GCMS chemical testing is forcing an entire global industry to finally be honest about what exactly they're selling us.
Armed with that knowledge, I strongly encourage you, the listener, to go look at the ingredient lists on the products sitting on your bathroom counter right now. Look closely at the packaging. Do you know the specific extraction method used?
It's worth checking.
Have you checked for essential oils that might be causing low-grade sensitization on your scalp? You now possess the analytical framework to read those labels with the critical eye of a cosmetic chemist.
It fundamentally changes the way you look at those tiny glass bottles forever. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Ooh, what's that?
So the source explicitly notes that environmental factors like seasonal humidity and temperature fluctuations should dictate your specific oiling schedule. But think about the actual chemistry of the water you use to wash that oil out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Depending on where you live, you might be showering in hard water. Every time you step into the shower, you are dousing your hair in heavy reactive minerals like calcium and magnesium.
Right, which build up on the hair, too.
Exactly. So, could your carefully chosen, perfectly cold-pressed, antioxidant-rich argan oil be chemically reacting with the heavy minerals pouring directly out of your tap? Is the invisible calcium in your shower fundamentally altering the molecular performance of your hair oil on wash days?
That is a highly complex chemical equation happening right there on your head.
It really is. Something to mull over the next time you step into the shower. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.